Hey everyone, this is Mason Hutchison, and welcome back to Herb Rally, your daily herbal podcast. We come out with new episodes about 5 days a week, so be sure to tune in often. We have over 632 episodes, so feel free to peruse those episodes, and you're bound to find something of interest. Our goal for the show is to help you along your herbalist journey, no matter what stage you're at. Today's episode is another Herbalist Hour interview, and this time I'm joined by Karina DesRoses and Asia Dorsey. And they're actually the hosts of another podcast called The Petty Herbalists. And I don't exactly recall how I found this podcast. Sometimes I'll just search Apple Podcasts or whatever for various different herbal podcasts that I haven't heard of before. And I'm pretty sure that's how I found about this one. But anyways, I listened to a few of the episodes and I was instantly like, this is an awesome podcast. I'm so glad this podcast is around. So Karina and Asia do an awesome job, and I really hope that if you've never heard of the podcast, I hope this interview will encourage you to pause this episode right now and go click subscribe on their show. So simply search The Petty Herbalist on your podcast player of choice. But yeah, we talk about a bunch about the various projects that the both of them are up to, both individually and the ones that they work on together, including their podcast. But yeah, they have lots of other educational opportunities out there, and I'll be sure to leave a link to all of that, all of their projects in the show notes. Well, not all of them, but some of the ones that we talk about. So anyways, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Also, before we get into the show, I want to tell you about an upcoming 6-month container for nurturing clarity and confidence in your skills called Crafting Your Herbal Practice. So the mission of this course is to create a container for herbalists to dive deep and emerge with greater confidence. This course will teach you how to tend yourself and your family with wise practices for our current times and how to maintain the integrity of the craft. The goal is to weave together essential clinical skills, sound business practices, and tools that nourish and nurture herbalists, their community, and their practice. This course is led by Patricia Howell, Kat Meyer, and Emily Ruff. So a dream team of herbalists. You can learn more about this container at yourherbalpractice.com. Again, that's yourherbalpractice.com. And some of the topics include personal self-development, waivers, insurance, business entities, taxes, and other fun questions and issues, skills to ensure community accessibility, tools to promote health justice and equity, ethics and confidentiality, good apothecary practice such as record keeping and safety issues, all aspects of intakes and how to create a safe container for healing in partnership with your clients and the larger community, and the role of the herbalist as ecological steward, and I'm sure a lot more. So again, you can learn more at yourherbalpractice.com. And yeah, just to reiterate how amazing these teachers are, Patricia Howell, Kat Meyer, and Emily Ruff all have years and years of experience. You're bound to learn a lot. So yeah, please check them out one more time, yourherbalpractice.com. And last but not least, I want to shout out Torin Frost, for creating the new intro music for the Herbalist Hour interview series. You can follow Torin Frost on Instagram at Torin Frost. He's a Washington-based MC. Hope you enjoy it. Again, follow Torin Frost at Torin Frost on Instagram. That's going to do it for my ramblings today, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. Take care.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Oh, mommy, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome everyone back to the Herbalist Hour. Today we're going to do our first kind of group interview. I've never interviewed two people at once before, but I'm very excited to welcome the crew from the Petty Herbalist podcast. I just started listening to this podcast a couple weeks ago, and it's hosted by Karina DesRoses, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Correct.
And then Asia Dorsey as well. So welcome, Karina, and welcome, Asia, to the show.
Yay. Thank you, Mason. So happy to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm stoked to have you on and kind of get to know you both a little bit better. So we'll see how this group dynamic works, but I'm sure we can pull it off. First off, I'd like to ask you both where you're at in the world. I know you're in two separate locations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, peace, y'all. I am here in the Cheyenne, Ute, and Arapaho territories, also known as Denver, Colorado. The lovely Rocky Mountains are surrounding me, and the dandelions are up dancing with the yellow dock. And so it's a beautiful spring moment to be here.
Yay. And that was Asia. Hey y'all, I'm Karina. I am on the Tongva land, which is also known as Los Angeles, California. I'm here with the sun finally up and it's not raining and it's such a lovely day today.
Awesome. And just for you two, for your reference, I'm in Eugene, Oregon, aka it's Kalapuya Chinook territory, which I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the podcast before, but my daughter is actually 1/8 Kalapuya Chinook, so it's kind of fun that she gets to grow up on the land where some of our ancestors were from as well. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's
What a
pretty.
gift.
It really is, yeah. And it's been fun to kind of teach her some of the local plants and whatnot. We'll see if she ends up becoming some sort of herbalist, but
It's in her blood.
that's right. Amen to that. Well, awesome. I wanted to kind of kick things off as well by reading a really fun description of your podcast. I don't know which one of you two wrote it, but two black herbalists and bougie aunties help you discern the real shit from the bullshit in food and herbs. Come share in the belovedness of Karina DesRoses and Asia Dorsey as they explore food science and medicine making at the intersection of ancestral reverence, ecology, and cultures of healing justice. So I love it. And as I mentioned to y'all before, I always appreciate a podcast that isn't afraid to use curse words.
Period.
Sometimes we'll drop the F-bomb around here. But I was really curious, where does the name Petty come from? Why the Petty Herbalist?
Well, okay. So I'll explain that, although it low-key comes from both of us. So before the Petty Herbalist podcast was started, Asia and I, and also our friend Tammy, shout out to you. We wanted to start a podcast years ago. The working title of the podcast or name of the podcast was going to be Daughters of Empire. And so it just, our various projects, life situations happened. And so we were not able to start it, but we still had it on our spirit to do it at least or at some point in time. So I started Petty Herbalist in 2021. As a way to brand myself and what I was learning. And so Asia had her bones, bugs, and botany, and I didn't really have a brand just yet. I had Hoodrina, which is one of my funny alter egos, but not necessarily. It's just a personality trait of mine. And so I was like, man, I don't know. And Asia was like, oh my gosh, what if you were the Petty Herbalist? And I said, period. As soon as she said that, I went ahead and got the handles on all of the social media platforms.
Nice.
And I was like, Petty Herbalist, that's what it is. And so, yeah, from there, I started posting on Instagram as a way to share what I was learning as a new herbalist and also a person who wants to become a doctor. So I'm like, this is a way for me to, or this is a creative outlet for me. And so like, I just want to share with people. I started Patreon and started doing the same things, but then I became kind of burnt out and I just couldn't get myself to post, even though this is my thing, like I started it. Additionally, I want to shout out birth workers of color out of Long Beach, California, because they I wrote a grant that they gave me a good amount of money. So that helped me start Petty Herbalist as well. But yeah, back to me getting burnt out. I just could not post. And so I had to turn to my strong arm, which is Asia Dorsey. And I said, Asia, I need help. Like, I can't do this. Like, I feel like I'm a self-motivated person. She said, you're not a self-motivated person. You're a community motivated person. And so like you need a community around you to help you get you going. And she was like, I want to be a petty herbalist too. Like, I think we should finally start our podcast. So, we sat down and actually planned it out what we were going to do. And so, yeah, we finally got it off the ground and we decided to name it the Petty Herbalist Podcast in September 2021. So that's where it came from.
Love it. Did you want to add anything to that, Asia?
Yeah, I mean, what does it mean to be a petty herbalist versus any other kind of herbalist?
Yes.
And it just came from sort of having a super high level of discernment and boundaries about like what's acceptable and what we want to do and how we do it. It's about really standing in your frequency while bowing to and acknowledging the frequencies of other people and other herbalists and other traditions. But to be petty, right, is a simultaneous process of being grounded and rooted in yourself, your needs, your desire, and your medicine way, while loving on other people at the same time.
Yeah. Period. Asia had the
the mic drop.
Yeah, the mic drop for that description. But petty, listen. One thing about us, like in a street smart way, like petty comes from, not only having high levels of discernment, but just truly being you and not being afraid to communicate whenever, whatever's on your spirit. This is why if we have a cuss word on our spirit on the podcast, we're gonna say it, and we feel that differentiates us from a lot of the herbalists that you hear or you see on social media.
Fucking A.
A period.
I did want to say, I think something that kind of illustrates your philosophy very nicely was at the end of one of your recent episodes. You were like, thank you so much for the review. And then you were like, one of you, I don't remember which one it was, but said, well, you gave us a 1-star. One of them was a 1-star. One of them was a 3-star. And it's like, any feedback's welcome, but I just appreciated your humility in that sense. You're like, we'll take the 5 stars, but at the same time, your feedback is welcome. So
yeah.
Receiving and accepting feedback is the responsibility that you have as a powerful person. And so, valuing even discontent is a part of a holistic practice of being in the world and knowing how it is that we're landing on our audiences and striving towards making sure that we're doing the best that we can.
Yeah, and we realize that our podcast isn't for everybody, and that's okay. Like, we want to be able to reach the ones that it reaches. And if it's not for you, go ahead and leave your review, because that helps us. Like, whatever review you leave helps us. But also, move on to someone else who is for you. But we want to make it known that we do have a certain niche and we cater to our niche, and we love to see if you want to dabble if you're not in the niche, but also if you don't, like, providing an exit to people is also what we'd like to do too. Period.
That's right.
I just heard this term for the first time the other day. Based. Do you know this term?
What do you mean?
So based, I heard, is essentially, it kind of sounds like the description of petty, as in you're just going to be yourself, you're going to be you unapologetically. But I don't know. I just heard that the other day and it kind of resonated and I really liked that. But so good stuff. Very wise words from the both of you. Thank you for sharing that. I was really curious. I don't think I've heard this in the podcast yet. How did you two meet?
I need to stop laughing so high pitched because you can't hear it when you edit it. Asia, do you want to say it? Because you already know my story, and so mine is the more petty version. So go ahead, Asia.
Okay. How do we meet? So, in high school, I was very type A. I was a goal-oriented and I knew exactly sort of what I wanted to do since middle school. And freshman honors biology class, okay, it's like I have to be a perfect student. I have to, because I have to get to an Ivy League. I was so this way. And there are these two Black girls, okay, Karina and Callie, and they were wilding out in the biology class, just wilding out. And I'm like, I'm trying to get this education, okay? I'm trying to vibe with what's vibeable. And they're just, they're just doing them. And I was like, I can't. Next year, honors chemistry.
No, it was freshman year.
It was still freshman year. What happened?
Okay. So yeah, Asia was a really cute girl. She had her little mismatching earrings and her rainbow clothing. Like Asia was so cute and nice, but also, she was a nerd. We all knew this. And so Calais and I, well, we were also nerdy but funny. And we had a teacher named Mr. Roy. If he ever hears this, he's gonna laugh. But he was such a silly teacher. Like he just, I don't know. Like one time he came in, he had a scar all the way across his forehead. And he was like, he gave us options as to what we think happened to him. It was dumb. But anyway, so Calais and I just acted up. And so Asia thought that we were ghetto. And so she didn't really want to hang out with us until so Asia and Calais had a similar friend group. And so I was hanging out with Calais. I remember we went to Burger King after some school event. And we were talking about politics, and I happened to be speaking with Asia. And so we were discussing some matter. And so at that point, Asia decided that I was smart enough to hang out with her.
It's pretty petty.
So yeah, very petty. But yeah, from there we started hanging out, and yeah, now we're best friends. And so we've been in a relationship for a long time.
Yeah, that's your wife, isn't it?
That's my wife.
My wifey for lifey.
Period.
Well, you have a long distance relationship now. How's that going?
It's better than ever. I mean, it's
absence makes the heart grow fonder.
I think it's just that we started working together on a more intentional level. And so, yeah, anytime. I mean, we talk work things, but also because we're in such close proximity, like we want to incorporate each other into our lives more. Whereas like in college, I only talk to Asia maybe a couple times a year.
Yeah.
And because we were so far away and we didn't have a common thing. So being right now in our 30s, having our common thing that our podcast is weekly. So we have to meet weekly for the podcast. And then with our other best friend, Calais, we have Bay check-ins on Thursday nights. So it's another way for us to connect. And so, yeah, we have all these intentional ways to keep our relationships stronger. And so, yeah, I would say it's stronger now than ever before.
Yeah. I mean,
Awesome.
Adults have to be really intentional about relationship. And I think we've really successfully modeled and practiced and created a structure that works. But it did take some time and some blow ups about, I need more time. Okay. And yeah, it's really powerful to choose your best friend in a lifelong way and to value sort of non-sexual relationships as much as we value reproductive ones. We practice a radical form of kinship making and being. And I think it's that sort of energy and frequency that we pull out that really encourages others to value the people who are going to be there forever.
Yeah, our relationship is interesting because when you describe it to people, like people don't really understand. They're like, so you're married? And I'm like, I mean, not technically, but Asia does come before like everyone else, you know, like even if I were to get married, like this person has to know that they're underneath Asia. Like I don't know how to tell you this. Like, and we have so many plans to like have a house together and have our kids grow up together. Like, it's such an important relationship. And so, you know, what Asia was saying before, like valuing like your platonic friendships above romantic relationships is not really what we do in our society, but like we do in our relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, y'all have a tight bond. It's very apparent. So where's the house going to be, in LA or Colorado?
It's not going to be in Colorado, I'll tell you that.
I honor Karina's boundaries.
Because although I too was born and raised in Colorado, like that climate is not for me. The altitude is not for me. I cannot. I mean, after living in the tropics, I lived in Dominican Republic for a year.
Mhm.
I lived in Playa del Carmen, Mexico for 5 months. Like and I live in LA now. Like I can't go back to the cold because I'm thriving in these warmer conditions.
It's
So
true. Biocompatibility, especially for two women of tropical descent,
yeah.
is actually quite significant, but also thinking about climate resilience and adaptation, making
Mhm.
long-term plans about where we're going to plant our roots. There's an analysis of how the changing climate is going to impact water resources, land rights, and also what is the political climate.
Mhm.
There are some places in the South where I'm not going to move to now because
Right.
reproductive justice doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of sort of decisions to make around where to live, and, ground down. And also, like, what are the herbs like? So
Okay.
there are all these like considerations, as the world is changing, how we build our extended kinship networks really matters. So that
Mhm.
was a great question.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to figure this out on air right now, but I will be curious to follow along the journey and see what ends up happening. I am going to be stealing certain elements of your show for this episode. So I got to ask, what's in your medicine bag today?
Yay. I knew you would ask that. Well, yeah, I can go first. In my medicine bag today, I will be menstruating starting today, I'm pretty sure. And so, I keep my things on me. Most importantly, I keep my motherwort tincture and my hawthorn berry tincture on me. Motherwort works wonders in easing my cramps, and I feel like hawthorn just keeps my heart right during this time where I can be in a lot of pain. I can just be exhausted. I could not want to see anybody or talk to anybody. But hawthorn definitely keeps my heart open and the
Mm,
blood flowing in the ways that I need it the most during these times.
yes.
Yeah. Of
Thank you for that sharing, Karina.
course. What about
Yeah,
you, Bay?
I know. What about me? Um,
I could go next if you want.
yes.
Sure. What's in
Amazing.
yeah, let's ask you.
I'll
So
buy you some time. Yeah, go for it. Say the line.
so what's in your medicine bag, Nathan?
First of all, I wanna it's kind of a question as well as a statement. I want to say that sometimes when I've heard your episodes, they're not necessarily always say herbal medicine, but sometimes it's like a mindset thing, or you save the bougie auntie advice for the end, but is it sometimes like I'm like one of the episodes I just recently heard, you said I'm choosing to believe both of my friends in this
Ugh.
situation because it's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
can you speak to that? Then I'll share you what is actually in my medicine bag.
Yeah. So, as most people, but especially folks from the African diaspora, Our world of medicine includes spirit, includes relationship, includes so many things. So sometimes a word, sometimes a learning, a teaching, a reflection, these can be as medicinal as a plant compound. And so thinking about and extending the tools really that we have to deal with a world that is both beautiful and painful and confusing and uplifting. What are all the tools, right, that we have at our disposal? And that includes psycho-emotional well-being as well.
Just a quick break from the show to let you know about the Herb Rally events page. Did you know that we add new herbalism events from all over the United States and the world for that matter on an almost daily basis? You can peruse herbalism events at herbrally.com/events and hopefully find something in your neck of the woods. You can also search by state to make it even easier to find a plant walk, conference, or class near you. And we also list virtual herbalism events as well. Check those out at herbrally.com/virtual. And again, for the in-person events, go to herbrally.com/events. All right, back to the show. Well said. So today I have a oat straw infusion. As with a lot of days, and I'm a big fan of doing single herbal infusions. I will say this: I perhaps unnecessarily added some magnesium to it, which I know it's already mineral rich, but I just infused some extra magnesium in there, and then I threw a couple squirts of St. John's wort tincture in there as well. So, yeah,
sounds good.
That's in my bag.
Yes.
I wanted to say I got hot sauce in my bag, but
hey,
which I do.
Hot sauce in your bag. Period.
How about you, Asia? What's in your medicine bag?
Ooh, so y'all, what's in my medicine bag is rhythm. What's in my medicine bag? I've set up this beautiful rhythm of going to the Havana sauna every Monday after my menstruation, and I love everyone who works there. It's Korean owned. And I love to show love to different communities by spending my money, like giving resources away. And we just have been negotiating on the type of soap that I need for my body scrub. And the owner's so cool. And like, how did it work? It may not work. We have to going back and forth. But I'm always checking out what she's eating because she's a fascinating character. And she just took ownership of the shop. So, and I saw some goji berry. I said, what you got over there? She's like, oh, the goji. I was like, yes, goji. Yes, spring tonics. We love to see it. And she told me, she's like, the best way to work with goji, and this is very important. And she was like, yeah, you just brew it with the hot water. Because eating it on its own, she said it could get a little sticky. And what I loved about her process is that as a plant that's rich in carotenoids, heating it actually releases more of its nutritional qualities, and making it as a tea will allow you to eat the flesh of the berry so that you can get those polyphenols and that you can get those really important fibers. And she helped me in that statement understand the idea of cloying foods. She said it was sticky, and it's very true, but I noticed that goji berry would cause there to be like little bumpies on my forehead because it's cloying, but that also translates to sticky. And so that rhythm of taking care of myself and putting my body in the hands of, my beloved Korean bathhouse owners on a monthly basis, it really revealed how to better be in relationship with a plant that is of sort of Asian origin. And so that rhythm, having those things in place to really catch me when I'm down and lift me back up, that is some of the biggest medicine that I'm experiencing this week.
Wow. Thanks for that share. I'm so excited to perhaps go to the Korean spa with you when you get here. Yes. So Mason, for context, my birthday is next week, April 26th. And
Happy
so
birthday.
Asia, thank you. Asia and Kelly are coming out to stay with me for my birthday. And so we're gonna do all the fun stuff in LA. So hopefully we could go to the spa.
That would be so fun. And I know you want to have some fun too, but are you going to do some business? Are you going to do any like in-person podcast episodes with each other?
Oh, we should.
Yeah.
But we have a lot to plan for the summer immersion. So we're going to be doing a lot of planning for that coming up. And who knows? We're probably going to be doing cooking. I'm going to take her through my neighborhood to harvest some fruit. The loquats are out. So, we're going to come back with some bags of loquats and some, the leaves are medicinal as well. So, we can do some things while she's here.
Karina, you're a pro at this. That's a perfect segue because I was actually going to ask Asia, which I think that she's the one that hosts the People's Medicine Bag series.
Yes.
And so I believe this podcast episode should be released in a few weeks. So I was wondering if you could maybe give a preview as to the upcoming summer medicine bag, if you have any information on that yet.
Yeah. So in the summer medicine bag, we are really discovering sort of the element of fire, and how to wield fire in a way that is beautiful. So that's going to include tinctures. It's going to include the temperatures of plants. It's going to include smoke, and different conversations about taking fire and smoke into our bodies. But it's going to be highly engaging, play-based, interactive. We're going to be in person for this retreat. And folks leave with a deep understanding of how to use this kind of pattern language in their healing. And it's not just healing their body, but understanding what the season is going to push us towards naturally and how to stay grounded sort of while we're doing that work. So each medicine bag series introduces students to particular forms of medicine making. We introduce a small materia medica so that students can create intimacy with a smaller number of plants. And then each season there's a new pattern language to learn. And so this is the season of summer. It's going to be hot. It's going to be hot. They're going to learn about inflammation. They're going to learn about all the things, and each season weaves into the next. So our spring medicine bag talked about, the anthocyan and rich plants that we discussed in our winter medicine bag, and how sort of bringing those into the spring can support us in powerful ways. And so there's a flow and a rhythm. But it's really exciting to take students on for all the seasons and have them be in deep relationship with place, as a place-based herbalist myself.
So, Karina, I know you taught it in the winter medicine bag series. Are you going to be a part of the summer one as well?
I sure am. I'm
That's
excited. Preview for, I guess, some of y'all who didn't take the winter immersion, but I taught on I taught about coffee and tea in 2 hours. And that's not enough time, but listen, we did the things. But I want to focus a little more on caffeine because caffeine is fire.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just a little preview, maybe a little more. Yeah, that thing.
Again, a perfect segue because I was going to ask about your coffee next, but just to shout you out, Asia, you could sign up for this at bonesbugsandbotany.com. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. And
Okay.
It's best to be on the mailing list because the courses fill up really, really quickly. And being a patron, you get access first, mailing list access second. But by the time that happens, it's usually full. So I really encourage people to jump on the mailing list.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll leave a link to that in the show notes, of course, and
Mm.
definitely sign up for both of these Karina and Asia's newsletters for sure. In fact, I need to take my own medicine because I don't think I'm signed up for the newsletter yet, but get me on there. But yeah, like I said, Karina, perfect segue. I was curious if you could I'd like to hear more about your passion for coffee, how it's herbal medicine, and your experience at the US Coffee Champs, if you want to share.
Oof. Yeah, so it was year 2020. We had the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and a lot of us lost our jobs, and I was one of them. And so I needed some work to pay the bills. And so I happened to have a friend who their brothers own a coffee shop. And so they needed a couple delivery people. And I said, I could do that. I have a car. And so, yeah, I became a delivery person at a cafe, and I got slightly trained on coffee, but it was just enough so that I could differentiate the orders, kind of thing. But during the George Floyd protests, our cafe got super busy because it is a Black-owned coffee shop. Shout out to Bloom and Bloom Coffee. But yeah, that place became, I mean, we had lines like around the block kind of thing. And so they said, Karina, no more delivering. You're going to take orders. And I said, all right. So essentially, I was like one of the faces of Bloom and Bloom Coffee because I was on the outside of the cafe because we needed the 6 feet sort of situation. And so I began talking to people and taking orders. And yeah, it was such a great job for a person like me who's like really charismatic and friendly. And so eventually that time ended, restrictions were removed. And so we moved back inside. And so they're like, hey, Karina, you're on bar. And I said, oh, okay. And so I became a barista instantly. And I eventually had to teach myself. I had a foundation of training from my original manager who became my roommate at one point and who's one of my friends. So but yeah, so I had to teach myself about coffee. YouTube was my friend, and yeah, I just practice after work, came in a little bit early so I could learn the things and just practice. And so yeah, I taught myself how to be a barista, and then like later on in my barista job, I became trained. But I mean, after that point, I knew most of the things. I just got refined just a little bit. But yeah, I loved coffee because I'm an herbalist. And so I learned, I feel like coffee made me a more intentional herbalist because learning the extraction methods of coffee, I'm like, they take this very seriously. I wish that we would take that same intention into extraction of other kinds of herbs, especially like teas or tisanes. And so, yeah, your question, how is coffee herbal medicine? Well, I did teach an entire class on that.
Well, we got like 2 more hours, so if you want to just no, I'm playing.
But basically, coffee is, especially being in Asia's winter immersion class, it kind of taught me things as I was going to teach. But coffee is powerful kidney medicine. It looks like a kidney bean. Like beans are kidney medicine, and so yeah, there's more that I can get into with that, but coffee has tons of polyphenols, which Asia said in the class that polyphenols most simply are plant skins that help us as anti-inflammatories. So there's so much to coffee besides its individual constituents, but basically coffee has such a long history and with humans, and it comes from Africa where it was a food before it was a drink. And so, and also tea too, but that's a whole nother thing. We could get into that at a later date, but coffee is just really fascinating. So if you know it started off as a food, you know it's nourishing. And so, yeah, coffee is really fascinating that you can always learn more things. And so, when I came back from Mexico last year, I decided to, go to more coffee things because there's a huge LA coffee scene and I happen to be involved in it because a lot of my friends are like pretty big people in the coffee scene. And so, yeah, I decided to attend some events and hang out with my coffee friends. And I was like, wow, I have such a powerful community here. And so I want to be involved in more things. And my friend Veronica, she has an organization called Glitter Cat, in which they train underrepresented people on how to compete in the US Coffee Championships. And so I'm like, hi, I'm underrepresented. I have multiple identities that are underrepresented or underrepresented. And yeah, so I was like, I want to learn more. And so I signed up and I was selected. I signed up initially to be or to compete as a barista, but they decided, hey, Karina, there are a lot of people doing barista. Would you be interested in coffee and good spirits? And that's competing in coffee cocktails. And so I said, well, I'm never made any before, but I'm sure I can do a few things. And so, yeah, I was like, sure, I can do that. And yeah, they said that I had to compete, and I didn't know you had to compete this year. And so I said, oh, well, all right, everyone, I'm competing. And so, yeah, I had to go through a pretty intensive weekend training in Portland. And then from there, I got a bunch of tools and equipment. Like I could run a little like coffee stand if I wanted to, the amount of equipment that I got from the sponsors for Glitter Cat. And so, yeah, I had to get a coffee sponsor. I mean, you don't have to, but the amount of coffee that you're going to use to practice, you need a coffee sponsor. And so I decided I want to use Dominican coffee, and I found a Dominican roaster out here in LA. And so, yeah, she sponsored me and she's amazing. We have an amazing relationship now. And I got an alcohol. You don't need that much alcohol. So I just bought it. But yeah, I practice at a cafe. Shout out to Morning Service Cafe for allowing me to use their espresso machines. And yeah, I competed in March, was it? And it was rough. As many times as you can practice. So for Coffee and Good Spirits, you have to compete with 2 signature beverages that include, as I mentioned, coffee and alcohol. For one of your drinks, it has to use espresso from the sponsored espresso machine. And then the other can be whatever brewing method you'd like. And so, yeah, as many times as I practiced, it was a whole nother thing to be on the competition stage. But shout out to Asia for being there. Asia
Yes.
was low-key my coach.
We competed in the
We
US Coffee.
And so my other friend, best friend Kelly, was also there, and some other Glitter Cat friends, coffee friends were there. And yeah, it was very difficult. Things were just messing up for me. Both of my scales messed up. And so they're just knocking off points. You have 2 judges on either side, just like being really meticulous.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I eventually went over time, which means you're going to be disqualified. But I even said it out loud. I was like, you're getting these drinks. And so, yeah, I served my beverages, probably not my best, but I did my best on the stage. And so, yeah, that was the US Coffee Championships. After I received my score sheets and spoke with the judges, everyone was so captivated by my performance, and everyone encouraged me to compete again. So I probably will. I'm not gonna say 100% just in case I don't do it, but I probably will. I don't know if next year's the year, but I will definitely compete again. Because yeah, it's a really cool exercise to just put yourself out there and see what you can do under pressure. And you're able to meet so many cool people in the coffee industry. So did that. And then this weekend, I'm going to be going to Portland for Coffee Expo. And
Nice.
that is where you meet everybody. So I'm excited to go out there. I'm going to be with the organization called Go Fund Bean. And yeah, they're an organization who runs or who raises money for coffee workers in the United States. They offer grants all year long for pretty much any purpose. If you're a barista or you work in coffee in some way, shape, or form, you can apply for a grant to use it anyway. So I'm on the advisory committee. And so we're going to just take care of people. And also we're throwing a prom. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, there's a lot happening, but I'll be there. So yeah.
Well, props for doing it and competing. That would be very nerve-wracking for me. So yeah, props. You're very multifaceted. So coffee, herbalist, and I also hear you're in med school too. Are you going to be, or
I want to be in med
oh, you
school.
want to be? Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Never bored with you. I did want to say I love coffee in the sense that it has almost like this immediate physiological effect on the body that is actually a really good way to describe herbalism to people who may not necessarily feel like, say, an oat straw infusion in their body, but like that there's constituents in there that are working on you. Coffee, it's like hard to consume it and not immediately notice some sort of physiological effect. Also, I had to ask before moving on to my question for Asia, do you have a favorite single origin? Is that Dominican?
That's a really difficult question.
Yeah. I'll tell you,
Because
mine's I like Ethiopian. I want to say it's Yirgacheffe.
yeah.
That is my jam. Anytime I see that at the store at a coffee shop, that's what I get.
Yeah, I mean, Ethiopian coffee is really good. Yirgacheffe is really good, especially people who like pretty acidic coffees.
Yep.
Yeah, Ethiopian is your single origin. I love Dominican coffee, especially because the roaster that I use, she gets her coffee from Jarabacoa, which is a city that I lived in when I lived in DR. So it was very familiar for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, the amount of coffees I've tried, I'm like, I don't know that I can pick one because just by changing the way that you dry a coffee can significantly change its flavor profile. So I don't know. Also, like I haven't tasted a lot of Indonesian coffees. So I'm leaving my
There you go.
it open just so, and I'm going to expo, like who knows what kind of cool coffees,
Oh yeah.
new like experimental coffees that I'm gonna try. So I'll have an answer for you at some
Yeah,
point.
get back to me.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
yet.
Portland is just up the road from us, and that is coffee mecca for sure.
Yeah.
Or one of them at least. So let's see. Asia, your turn. I saw on your Instagram you posted a recipe. It looked like you were cooking called red.
Yeah.
Is this true? Am I getting that right? Red?
Yes, it is.
It just looked phenomenal. And I was hoping you could maybe share maybe some of the ingredients or the cooking process, but also if there's any sort of like story associated with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to circle back and give a shout out to Karina because the way that you follow your heart and do hard things and really jump in and take risks that like nobody else would. Like, I just want to give you like more love to like your ingenuity, your ability to make friends, and your ability to like do what's outside of the imagination of most people. And yeah, I just thought that story really captured who you are.
Thank you.
I lived in Ghana for about 6 months. I studied abroad there. And while I was in Accra,
Shout
I got so upset. I am the petty of the petty. I'm the bougie of the bougie. And what I got upset about was the denigration of red palm oil.
Mm.
And that local Ghanaians were switching out their antioxidant rich, basically superfood oil for American oil seed sort of alternatives, and the health impacts were showing. And I was taking global nutrition. Of course, I've studied nutrition literally around the globe in India and Ghana. There was just like this infuriation in me around just the assumption that the oil that's been used by my ancestors for thousands of years is somehow deficient. So I made a red palm oil documentary. And I interviewed health experts, and I'd never made a film before, of course. But I really changed sort of a lot of minds and talked about the deep medicinal qualities of red palm oil. I had a woman, my sister Florence, shout out, take me to the marketplace, and we made red palm oil from scratch, and really developed this deep relationship with such a sacred plant that has been denigrated. And, you know, for people who don't know a lot about sort of global food systems and things like that, the attack on red palm oil by rapeseed oil manufacturers, canola, and other American, industries has been a real intentional thing because of the competition, because of the qualities of these sort of tropical fats. And so anyways, I cooked a lot in Ghana. And I cook a lot. And that was one of my favorite recipes was red. And in particular, the black-eyed pea is very sacred to African Americans, but as I learned, to all most people throughout the diaspora, wherever our ancestors went, we took our sacred bean. And so part of what I'm up to, I used to be very strictly bioregional. It's like I got my diet to 90% Colorado, my seeds, my eggs, my milk, my meat, my veg, right? Like everything. But after experiencing how healthy tropical foods made me feel, I've been incorporating my ancestral foods. And so what is it like to take black-eyed peas and not add a ham hock to it, or not add smoked turkey to it, but to instead add shrimp powder, right? Instead, I'm working with creating the same umami flavors that I experienced in Accra, but with ingredients that have the integrity that I can access and that meet my standards. And so, I don't know where, I get my shrimp wild crafted from an ethical, sustainable company, the kinds of fish sauces I use, and the quality of red palm oil that, I have in my kitchen. Thank you to all my YouTube aunties who showed me discernment about which red palm oil is the best, because I got that and it's fair trade. Okay. And so, yeah, I make it a tradition to honor sort of the recipes that I learned while I lived in Ghana, and to continue sort of to eat of the foodways of my ancestors, even when that includes participating in import and export. But there was a moment where I was like, well, I import my olive oil from family farms in Italy, and I'm paying out of the wing for that. So what's the barrier between me importing red palm oil when it's the oil that matches my body? And so, yeah, I've been in a deep process with red palm oil, specifically from West Africa, learning about, most people don't know that red palm oil is one of the food sources that are rich in the full spectrum of vitamin E. So that's trochophenols and trochophenols. It has like the broadest spectrum of carotenoids. Like, folks don't understand vitamin A until you get what red palm oil does for the body. And it's everything about it is a lesson, and understanding the kinds of traditions or body ailments that may come up in the tropics. There's a reason why that's what you eat and not the oil of corn. And so I'm always concerned about preserving traditional foodways, because all of these cultures have lessons to teach us. And if we are eating a homogenized diet that's based off of what's available in the United States, then we will lose sort of these breadcrumbs that take us back to our ancestors. And so, yeah, red is a beautiful dish. That has ginger, that has red peppers, that has red palm oil, black eyed peas. It's consumed often with plantain. We love some plantain.
Oui.
And it also gives me the opportunity to go to the African market and, kick it, learn from those folks. I live in a place that's really diverse here in Colorado. And so there is a market owned by people from across. So it's really cool kind of to go there and talk to them. And they talk to me in Twi, and I'm like,
Hey.
yes, Akowaba, like. So it's good to, be with people of culture, and yeah. So yeah, I love exploring the cuisines of Africa. And I know I can't make a soup like some of y'all's moms can make a soup, but I'm learning, and I love adding Ghanaian cuisine into my repertoire alongside Italian cuisine, alongside soul food, alongside all of the culinary traditions that I am dancing in the mystery of.
That's exactly what I was hoping for. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess this is a good time to plug both of your Instagram accounts. I want to say it's at Bones, Bugs, and Botany for you, Asia.
Yeah, that's right.
And then do you want to be followed at Petty Herbalist, Karina, or is there a different one?
Yeah, at Petty Herbalist is where, I'd be sharing all the things, herbs and food and whatever I'm into at the moment. I mean, you could follow me on my personal Instagram, but Petty Herbalist, that's where I do my work. So
yeah. And I don't want to
yeah.
make it sound like we're necessarily wrapping up. I know it's been almost an hour, but I actually still have quite a few questions. But if y'all are down to hang out a little bit longer,
we actually are, and I have you in the calendar until 2:30, so we have time.
Perfect. Awesome, sweet. Well, that's good news. Okay.
There's two of us, so we should have more time.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Period.
I ask everyone this. I'm always curious. I'd like to know who some of y'all's herbal mentors have been.
Oh, I was like, am I going first?
Oh yeah, I should specify. Hey,
Yeah.
Hey, Karina, who's been some of your herbal mentors?
Oh man. Well, I just want to say that Asia is my first herbal mentor besides the plants, because in 2017, where I was living at this place where I was completely alone, not by my own volition, but I was renting a room from a family, and I happened to be going to school at the time. I know you mentioned that I need to get back to about me wanting to go to med school, but yeah, I was going to UCLA at the time. I was working full time. I was just too busy for everybody, and they had gone on vacation for an extended amount of time, and I was just alone. I didn't have anybody, and my depression was like the worst it's ever been in my life. And so I found that there were these plants around me that were fascinating that I didn't know too much about, but just a little. Lemon balm and rosemary were all around me, and I was like, these plants must do something. I don't know, they're calling out to me. And so I did a little bit of research, and I found that lemon balm is really supportive to people who are going through depression and anxiety, which is exactly what I had. And so, yeah, I wanted to figure out more ways to support myself with these plants and maybe some other ways. And so I reached out to Asia, and then from there, Asia introduced me to Susan Weed, who is a 70-something-year-old woman, American woman who just like knows all the things about temperate plants. And I think she's of like Hungarian origin. She just, yeah, she knows so many things, and she has a radio show to this day. I mean, it's been around for a long time, and she's just very generous with her knowledge. And so I had started watching that or listening to the radio show. She has like some things on YouTube. I was just really drawn to the way that she's just, yeah, her generosity, her knowledge, her storytelling, and also the way that she encourages people to have high discernment when it comes to plants and plant medicine. So she's one of them. Also, shout out to birth workers of color. There are a lot of herbalists in that community who actually showed me some of the plants that I had only heard about or only been purchasing dried. So Mama Mais, they taught me, or they showed me what nettle looks like and some other plants. So shout out to birth workers of color. They've done so much for me. Shout out to women in Mexico who, you know, taught me about some of the herbs and plants out there. Shout out to the folks who run the Golagichi Herbal Conference, who, yeah, they brought together tons of herbalists. And that's where I met Brandon Ruiz the first time. So Brandon is also one of my herbal mentors. So shout out to him. Shout out to Rosemary Gladstar, who I've learned a lot from, and Asia actually got to work with her at Ecoversity. So those are just some of my herbal mentors, but ones that, yeah, I'll shout out on air.
So, Karina, that's actually really exciting that you, Brandon Ruiz is one of your OG herbal mentors. I actually get to finally meet him for the first time. He's gonna be at the Great Lakes Herb Fair in September, which we'll also be at. I've had lots of communication with Brandon over the years, and love the guy. And I saw he was just recently on your show as well. So
yes,
that was a great
him.
that was a great episode. But very good. Well, Asia, who have been some of your herbal mentors?
Yeah, so I came into herbalism through food. And my herbal practice has been a commitment to learning from wise women around the world. And so my first apprenticeship was with Kay Baxter of the Kalanga Institute. I had no idea sort of what it was, but I gained sort of my foundation in understanding health, understanding the relationship between food and people and culture from Kay. Shout out to Sally Fallon. We all love nourishing traditions. Like, that's the
Yes.
Bible. Okay. It really is. It's scripture. And of course, sort of when I sort of returned to Denver, started a fermented food company. And there was an organization called Ancestral Herbalism that was started by Cherie Brown. Shout out to her. And through ancestral herbalism, I helped to organize. And the idea was everything that we needed was right here in Colorado. And so she would invite different herbalists to teach what their offering was. And so I got a lot of exposure to some of the local kind of plant people here in Colorado. And I had a friend, Sarah Chevelle, who was also part of the 5 Points Fermentation Company. And I was experiencing, like Karina and her lemon balm, I was experiencing wild, terrible, terrifying anxiety. I had just started a food company with no capital and a dream, right? And it was a lot for my body, and I was having panic attacks. But Sarah, I didn't believe in herbal medicine, to tell you the truth. I was like, oh, you're gonna throw some teas at me? You're gonna sprinkle some leaves on my head, right? I'm like, I want the thing. I want what works, right? I want what works. But Sarah Chevelle gave me a motherwort tincture, and in 3 drops, the anxiety disappeared. And I never experienced something that was that real. But I was also, it was my first time working with the tincture. And so I'd ask my other friends, like, I'd run out of Sarah's tincture, and I'd ask another friend, like, do you have tincture of motherwort, please? And they would, but it wouldn't work. It would be different. And then I'll ask another friend, and it didn't do the thing. It was different. So I went back to Sarah and asked, like, how did you make this work? And I actually crying, like, I'm embarrassed, but I need more. I ran out. I need more. And Sarah was so generous with me and introduced me to an herbalist Susan Weed, with a warning sign. It's like, yeah, she's edgy. And I was like, oh, okay. But I was so grateful to be introduced to Susan. I mentored with Susan, and I also apprenticed with Susan as well. And I was kicked out of my apprenticeship. And that was, that in itself was also a lot of really powerful teaching, sort of in plant medicine and in what it means to be a part of a living legacy and a living lineage, to be a part of history. We think about herbal medicine. We can't think about herbal medicine without feminists, without feminism as a co-movement to restore sort of the practices of traditional people. And in that, right, we have people who had to sacrifice lots of different parts of themselves to make a way in herbal medicine so that the rest of us could walk through and learn and study with ease. And Susan, as one of the foremothers of spirituality and herbal medicine, has been one of those persons who has made a way for other people, irrespective of her individual sort of defaults. And so always honoring that lineage, but also honoring that lineage holders can cause harm, right? Also honoring that lineage holders are not perfect. And as a feminist, as a Black feminist as well, part of my commitment to the work is it's holding space for the diversity of incarnations that people are brought here with, and also choosing paths that create beauty. And it's possible. And, as herbal educators, Karina and I, it was so good to see that, like, oh, we have the capacity to be really bad bitches and bougie aunties, and we can cause healing and transformation through and through. We don't have to create a path of suffering kind of in our wake. And so we choose to walk in right relationship with our students and with all people. And we honor all of the folks who made a way for us to have these embodiments right now.
Oh, I love the Petty Herbalist podcast.
That
I feel
was
like
beautiful.
that was so well put. Thank you for sharing. Y'all, you need to go subscribe to the Petty Herbalist podcast, because you're going to be getting knowledge bombs like that on the regular. So they come out with new episodes every week. But we're not quite out of here yet. Just a few more questions. Actually, I have a whole slew of questions that we're not going to be able to get to. So we got to
really want to get to the question.
Listen.
We'll have to at the very least do a round 2, but there's definitely a couple more that I've got to do. I'm going to do the let's get deep random round here and see what we got here. All right. Actually, I did this on a previous episode, so I'm going to take this out, unless it's what was the last show you binge watched, but I did that 2 episodes ago, so let's keep it fresh.
I was like, I could tell you right now what that is, but
What is it?
oh, okay. I was like, I can tell you. I last binge watched Love is Blind,
Oh
and yeah, the reunion just happened, so that's why I was like, oh man, that was
My
a
wife
lot.
Amanda's watching that too. Yeah.
Ooh, that was a dramatic show. But I must say, if you haven't watched Love is Blind, this past season was one of the better ones out of the previous. So I'm just saying, if you're interested, if you're bored, you don't have anything else to do in your life, or you just want to, for me, sometimes I need to binge a show because I need to like transport myself to another world. Like for now, like it can be really stressful to be in the world.
Mm.
The world can hurt, and being in a different world can be healing. It allows your body to rest a little bit. And so for that like hour and a half that I'm binge watching the show, like my heart can rest, my brain can rest, my body can rest, and I can just drink some, I don't know, chamomile tea right now and some popcorn and just enjoy. So yeah, binging shows is medicine. Is in my medicine bag sometimes.
I couldn't agree more. I just had a whole rant on a couple episodes back about how I'm really into, like, say, watching NBA basketball, because as a kid, I really loved the sport of basketball. I like playing it, I like watching it. I've got like teams and players and etc. And it's very funny to be kind of in the herbal realm where a lot of the people don't necessarily like sports in general. And
Yeah.
but yeah, like I think everybody needs escapism, because otherwise,
Mm,
I'm always kind of serious, and it's nice to just be able to like escape the world for a little bit and just
yeah.
watch something pointless like, Love is Blind or something.
Yep.
I would like a new
Agreed.
question.
What's that?
I would like a new question.
Okay, good.
Oh yeah.
Actually, this one's actually perfect. It's what is a kitchen appliance you cannot function without?
Yeah.
That's for you, Asia.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great, because I am a kitchen witch. You
Yeah.
should see all of my toys. Ooh, but who can I not function without? That's hard, because technically I can function without all of my toys. I know how indigenous people did it.
Hey.
But it's who would I not want to function without? And that would have to be my food processor.
Ooh.
I love my food processor. It's the best food processor. I love it. I studied it. I researched it. I use it every single day. I eat so much more vegetables than all y'all because I have my food processor.
Come on.
Now, it's been awesome. It's been awesome to create ease. I think, in the transition to the labor economy that brown women were always in the labor economy, blah, blah, blah. But also when women started to get to work, we had all this like conversations about labor saving devices, right? And we really tried to export the kitchen. And so people are buying box cakes and there's all these gadgets, and some gadgets though are actually revolutionary. And I gotta say, my food processor, I love it because I get to just considerably increase the amount of vegetables I eat, because it makes it so easy. It makes it so easy to chop, to dice, to and I find that there's no harm to the quality of food because of that ease. And that's another thing. Some of the, devices, they change the inherent qualities. Microwaving your food makes it more inflammatory. It increases the ages, right? Different cooking methodologies changes the nutrition, but food processing does not cause harm, and it releases a lot more beauty. So I love my food processor. I never thought I would. I never, I'm like dice it, slice it, knife skills, old school. But yeah, that particular labor saving device really does enhance my well-being. It really does.
Oh, am I answering too? Okay.
Yeah, if you got some.
Well, I too am a kitchen witch. And I have many of things, but I must say my two kettles, since I'm also a coffee and tea girly. My kettles are everything. I have two like they're especially made for coffee or for people who like do pour overs and different kinds of brewing methods. But these two kettles are important because you can change the temperature of the water. And so if you're making like matcha and green teas and I guess specialty black teas too that require a particular temperature, like you need the things in order to get all the taste profile or flavor profiles and to really enjoy the coffees and the teas at the right temperature. And yeah, nowadays the coffee community is deciding that we like a lower temperature for our extraction. So instead of 100 degrees Celsius, I think people are using like 96 degrees. Some people even 94, like depending on your brewing method, like with the AeroPress. Some people are doing even 92. So having the ability to change the temperature on your water, like it changes the game. So I love that. And shout out to Asia for getting me my first kettle. And then I got my other kettle through Glitter Cat. So yeah, I'd say that I use that every day, multiple times a day, because obviously I got to make my herbal infusions and then I got to make my teas and then like all the things that I make. So yeah, that's one thing I can't live without.
My brother started nerding out on the AeroPress, and he was messing with the temperatures and stuff. Yeah, it's you could go deep down that rabbit hole. Yep. I love it. Oh yeah, so it's almost time. And I know we, like I said, there's so many more questions I had. Would you all be up for a round two, maybe in a couple months or something?
Yeah, I think so.
We'd love a round two.
That would be amazing because I really wanted to talk to y'all about cooked greens and pot liquor. And I'm guessing that's like probably too long of a topic right now, but it's definitely something that fascinates me. I want to say episode 7, y'all did an episode with someone about cooked greens, but then specifically I also want to talk about pot liquor as well. I don't know if y'all delve into that at all, but
yeah.
So let's definitely schedule a round 2, but I've got the petty herbalist with me. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask if y'all have any bougie auntie advice before we get out of here.
Ooh, come on. I love this. Asia, go ahead.
Karina. Okay, yeah, Asia, you go first. Or yes. Whoever's got it.
I think my bougie auntie word of advice for what I'm really thinking about. There was a word, Mason, that you used at the beginning. Do you remember that word? It was like duffing.
Fuck?
Or
oh.
No. But it was something about like being based. Yeah. That reminds me of the war on drugs, so I don't like it. But second of all, this idea of being unapologetically yourself. I'm a professional facilitator, and I often am that, and you find that on the Petty Herbalist podcast. But what I am learning is that there has to be space in our body for an apology. And so while it's so beautiful to be your full self, be entirely self-expressed, to stand in your frequency, to stand your ground, all of these things, we have to also remember that we are a part of a web of relationship, and that we're never alone. So there's no such thing as standing on your own or standing your ground. Sometimes being who you are can cause harm. And when we do that, the real question of who you are is that, do you have the medicine bag to repair it? And that is my bougie auntie word of advice. With great power, right, comes this other thing too, which is really the character, really the mark of strong character, which is your ability to mend the things that you break. It's amazing to be powerful and confident and unapologetically you. And I want us to learn how to be we, us, ours even better than what we have now. And that is my bougie auntie word of advice is, what kind of apologies do you have in your medicine bag?
Mm.
I love that so much. That is so good. Yeah, I was looking up based the definition of, I guess it does have actually a war on drugs terminology, but then yeah, it also, some rapper, I guess, reclaimed it, says being yourself and not caring whatever others think of you. But yeah, of course, sometimes that comes at a cost. Like you said, we're all a part of society, and we got to have some humility and know when it's time, when we hurt someone, when we got to like apologize and whatnot. So beautifully said, Asia. Thank you for sharing that. Karina, you got anything or any
Oof.
feedback on Asia's?
Of course, we always do that.
Oh,
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, Asia and I had a really powerful conversation about, that sort of thing during the weekend. And yeah, I think that is a marker of your character. Like, how do you respond to people when you've hurt them? Because we're going to hurt people just because just being in proximity, like the way I do things is different than Asia does things, and the way that Mason you do things. And my tone might trigger you because it might remind you of something else in the past. But for me, I want to be a person who never knows everything. Like, I want to be able to know other people better. So, conflict, although is difficult, it invites us to get to know each other better. And it puts me in a position where I can love people better. I'm like, wow, I didn't love that person enough in that moment. Like, let me learn how to do it better. And I can do it better next time by inviting the conversation of like, how can I serve you better? Apparently, I didn't do so this time. So, yeah, Asia, thank you for that. Um, yeah. So speaking of people letting you down, so this past weekend was Coachella, and Frank Ocean is like the headliner of this past weekend. I think maybe next weekend too, but wasn't sure. And like he was at the very end, and he was scheduled, or everyone's set is to be streamed on YouTube for people to see. And so like I think it was a couple hours before like they announced that Frank Ocean was not going to be streamed, and people were upset. And then, so of course, like we were all desperate, and we were waiting for other people to like go on TikTok or IG Live and like show us what was happening. And so Frank Ocean was like an hour late, and he let everybody down with his set. And yeah, he spent a lot of time backstage. He like lip sync, like he did a few songs, but overall, people were just let down. And he also got on there and said like, hey, I'm glad to be here, but also it reminds me of being here with my brother. We used to come here very often, and his brother passed away 2 years or 3 years ago at this point. And so it's like, how do we deal with people who let us down, but also like have compassion with them? And it's a struggle because there are no right answers, right? Like, I think that everyone has the right to feel the way that they feel. And, like no one has to explain why. Like, if this is how you feel, if this is the way that they let you down, then please feel all the ways. And if I don't feel those things, then like that's okay too. But we can coexist with one another and have compassion with them. So for me, I am the type of person who's like, I think it's a good thing for your heroes to let you down so that you can see them as a human, and so you don't keep putting them on a pedestal. But also, like, I want to have compassion for all the people who spent thousands of dollars to be at Coachella for, someone to not meet their expectations. Like Frank Ocean hasn't performed in about 6 years, and people love him. And so people truly felt heartbroken. And so like I'm having compassion with them. And also, yeah, I maintain that this is what I believe, but we can have multiple beliefs at the same time. So I guess my bougie auntie word of advice is like, how can you have compassion for people even if you don't agree with them? Like, what does that look like for you? And how can you make your relationships more powerful by including compassion in them? So that's what I have.
Wow. That brought up a lot of emotion for me, Karina.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Frank Ocean.
Yeah. It's hard,
Yeah.
because he had all these cool things planned out for his set, and last minute he canceled them.
Yeah.
And it let down a lot of people who were supposed to perform in his show, because he was supposed to have like a whole skating rink, and they had to drain the skating rink, like tell the people, hey, you're actually not going to be performing at Coachella this year. And so, yeah, it let a lot of people down, but also like he did what he could, like I'm sure he was so triggered being there without his brother, so and who knows what else is happening, because we can't know everything that's happening in someone's brain. So yeah, there's a lot there. And
Yeah.
with your situation too, Asia, like times are complex and it's hard to be someone's hero. It's hard to be, a leader and try to be your fullest self, and knowing that you're letting people down by being that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think both of our words of advice together are really powerful.
And I'm curious, Mason, what is your bougie uncle word of advice?
I thought you'd never ask. It's kind of funny. Like you said, Karina, yours ties together nicely with Asia's. I guess mine kind of does too. I've been doing a lot of work on like self-love. And so I've literally been telling myself I love myself. Whereas before, when I was growing up, I had extremely low self-esteem. And I always thought that, if you loved yourself, you were kind of conceited or arrogant or egotistical. And I didn't really understand actually a healthy level of love for oneself. And I'm learning more and more, the better I feel about myself and the more self-care I do, I'm actually able to provide better and be a better human and be a better, friend and all that. And actually, it's like the whole cup overfloweth thing. You're actually able to start, sharing and loving and giving a lot more. And so I'm really I guess my advice would be to the person who might be struggling, maybe consider a self-care routine that involves literally telling yourself you love yourself and why and why you deserve love, essentially.
Yeah, it's powerful. It really is. Ooh, I'm just thinking about some bougie auntie word of advice that I gave a long time ago that Asia still brings up. I find that people who are really insecure or have low self-esteem are often very arrogant and self-centered, because they're always trying to figure out how someone else is going to perceive them, and they don't make a lot of time and space for loving other people. So yeah, I resonate with what you're saying, like taking the time to love yourself. You have so much love. Like once you love yourself fully, like yeah, you can truly love other people. I mean, the way that I love Asia, the way that I love my other friends, like I just have so much space. And also when you create those relationships that are loving and you run out of love, that person like sees you and they can overflow their love into you. So it creates like a cycle. It creates reciprocation by truly safety.
The social safety net of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
it's a really beautiful practice.
I was thinking like you don't have to have all the self-love, right? Like, because you can borrow some from your wife and your baby.
Yeah.
Right. And then you pour some in and then they pour some out. And the answer to that question is because you were born is why you deserve love.
Yeah.
The fact of your birth
Yeah, your existence.
is enough.
Yeah.
And you're out here giving us all this sweet medicine, putting everybody on. Like,
Mhm.
look, this
That's
is what
love.
your love looks like in public, and it comes back to you. So we just want to thank you, Mason, for honoring us, for giving us a highlight, for thinking about our bodies of work and our worldviews in such a loving and intentional way. It's so beautiful that you reached out and gave us this invitation, and we really want to thank you for being in solidarity. Want to nod to our similar learning experiences, but also like the heart that you have to lift other people up in this herbal community. Like, it's really powerful. And so we wanted to give you a big and beautiful thank you for that.
Yes.
Stop
shout
it.
out
You're
to
going to make me
you.
cry.
Please do let it out. Take your soul to the laundromat.
That's
As
right.
Asia always says.
I love that. Oh, wow. What a compliment. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm glad that I get to vicariously have you as my two aunties through the Petty Herbalist
Period.
podcast. So.
Anytime.
I love it. Well, thank you both, Karina, Asia, for joining me on the Herbalist Hour. And I'm really looking forward to publishing this and getting this out in the world. I think y'all dropped a lot of gems, and just really excited for what y'all are up to. Again, please subscribe to Petty Herbalist on your podcast player of choice. Check out bonesbugsandbotany.com. Karina, pettyherbalist.com for you.
Just at
Something like
Petty
that.
Bliss on Instagram.
There you
can
go.
go there. There isn't a website,
Okay.
but I own the domain. But
Sounds good.
we're on Instagram right now, and the link in bio.
Word. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode. Stay on the line. And we'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Awesome. That was so good. Thank you so much. And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Herb Rally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at Herb Rally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from Herb Rally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.